The John Lebang Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised. Well, we're in it again, aren't we, ladies and gentlemen? The New World Order marches forward, even though Trump is in office. Welcome, I'm John Lebang. Man, I don't want to be covering this. This is not the type of show I want to be covering on the weekend that I have my 4th anniversary here on the radio. But that's what we're forced into talking about. On Friday the 13th, Donald Trump, the American military, the British military, the French military attacked Syria with a barrage of missiles and sorties, whatever you want to call what's going on there, over an alleged chemical attack that the inspectors who were going to go see this area for an attack to make sure it was a chemical attack of some sort and maybe whose chemical was used haven't even been there yet. So we don't even know what kind of attack actually happened. There was some social media talking, and the media over there was talking about where the attack came from and who launched the supposed chemical attack. But yet we don't actually have men on the ground, according to our own generals. We don't have men on the ground to verify that. Yet we launch an attack without congressional approval. Thank you very much, Mr. Trump, following right in line with the Obama administration, just doing things on their own because, well, why not? They did it, so we can do it. They can do it. Everybody can do it. Screw what the Constitution tells you to do. The heck with it. And I'm still wondering what, if any, national security threat this posed to the United States. And then we have Russia saying that whatever chemical attack there was, it was Britain, the United Kingdom, who launched it in a false flag manner. Can we believe Putin? Nah. Can we believe any of the governments, any of the elected officials? Our own president, who railed against President Obama's interaction in Syria, is now following suit. Mr. Twitter Don he did so many tweets about Syria when he wasn't president, about why it's bad in being there and we shouldn't be there and we're taking the wrong kind of action. We'll read some of those tweets that he has posted throughout the years because it's public knowledge, and anybody who's not a warmonger and who doesn't want us to be a part of another military conflict, this one may be expanding into something much larger, being that Russia told us not to do something. The proof isn't there. Russia has also said that there are going to be dire consequences if the United States or the West takes action in Syria. I thought we were trying to get out, Mr. Trump. Thought we were trying to get out of Syria. We pulled our boots on the ground out, or we were supposed to, but apparently that didn't work either. You see, this is turning into a larger conflict. People think this is about Syria now, but it's not. This is about a greater, larger geopolitical movement. Some people would call it the New World Order. Some people call it the deep state, the one world government. But they haven't been able to topple Syria. Not yet. And in fact, what really gets me, what makes me think a little bit, because I am a thinker, I'm not the ones who just absorb what the mainstream manufactured news tells me and then I just spit it out to whoever to make me think or to make other people think that I'm smart. I don't know how smart I am, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not the smartest person on the planet, but I know when we're being BS'd. I'm really good. I have a great BS detector here. And this conflict that we have now engaged in, 100-plus military strikes, cruise missiles and those sort of things were used against Syria's chemical weapon attack in a country that's posing no threat to our country, no direct threat. They haven't declared war on us, at least not publicly. But here's Assad. I want you to take this logic into play. Here's Assad winning the war, the civil war. They're down to the rebels, that is, the rebels. If there were rebels here in the United States, they would call them terrorists. But the rebels inside of Syria have been losing and losing and losing. And Syria, with the aid of Russia, has pretty much won the civil war. It's almost done. In fact, the only parts of civil war that's going on inside Syria is in this small area. When you look at the size of Syria and then you look at the part of that country that has the actual rebel forces, the resistance, quote unquote, you'll see that it's not much. They've lost ground. Syria was on the verge of winning the civil war against the rebels. Now, I want you to take this into consideration. You're winning the war. You're beating back the opposition, the rebel groups. And in some strange occurrence, you decide, the heck with it, we're already winning. Let's use some chemical weapons on these people. Doesn't make sense. I'm not saying Assad didn't use chemical weapons, but it doesn't make sense that he would when he was winning the war. The war was probably going to come to a conclusion within the next year. That's how bad these rebel forces have been defeated. With the, Russia's helped Syria out. And here we strike factories, facilities that they say are chemical weapons. I mean, it's a lot like when Bill had the blue dress problem and he blew up the aspirin factory. Remember that? I mean, some of you remember that. You're old enough to remember that? Saying Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, WMDs. And after years and years and years of putting up with him, so to speak, we go in there and take him out, and we don't find WMDs. Now we have somebody saying, the news media, and certain political backgrounds here, certain political factions, saying that the country that was winning used a desperation weapon to kill off the opposition, which was already losing the war and was probably not going to be around. Now this escalates everything. We're moving the largest task force of ships into an area since like 2003 or 4. And if you think this hasn't been building up, this is something beyond a chemical weapons attack. Because I know the mainstream media doesn't want you to be fully aware of what's going on. But I'm going to play you a clip from one of our people out there, one of our important people in government, these truthful people. In a moment of truth, Mr. Pompeo, are you guys familiar with that guy, Mr. Pompeo? Pompeo, which is President Trump's nominee to serve as Secretary of State, so he's going to be doing the job of John Kerry and what Hillary Clinton did. He admits that we had a skirmish a few months ago, back in February, and he acknowledged that the U.S. killed a whole bunch of Russians inside Syria. And these weren't the Russian Olympic team. It wasn't the Russian hockey team. What kind of Russians would be in Syria? Well, that would be the Russian military. And if you don't believe me, here's the clip.
This administration announced a nuclear posture review that has put Russia on notice that we're going to recapitalize our deterrent force in Syria. Now, a handful of weeks ago, the Russians met their match, and a couple hundred Russians were killed. The list of actions that this administration has taken, I'm happy to walk through each of them, but I don't want to take up much more time.
And I appreciate that.
The list is pretty long, man.
And I certainly agree with that, and I think those actions are important.
So Mr. Pompeo admits that the United States inside Syria took out a bunch of Russians. Now, I thought that we weren't supposed to be there because when President Trump was running for the office he is currently holding, he was against a lot of the Syrian action, and he was talking nice about Russia. Now he's trying to pick a fight with Russia. We've killed a couple hundred Russians. Now we're launching strikes inside Syria, a revenge strike on top of it. You know, Mr. Trump, just a side note here, Mr. Trump, if you're listening, all the Christian talk and all the biblical talk that I've heard out of you in the past 3 or 4 years, in the Bible it says we don't handle revenge, Mr. Trump. We leave that to God. So if you're such a Christian, Mr. Trump, you should follow those words. And since no actions were taken against U.S. forces, the U.S. itself, any U.S. interest, what revenge factor do we even have? We're going to get into a lot of the details of what happened on Friday the 13th. April, another April event. April's an awfully bloody month in the world. In history, it's just an awfully bloody month. That's the same month, actually, the 15th. That would have been the day of the Boston bombing, where the FBI knew some guys were going to do something, didn't do anything about it, and then they raided everybody's house looking for the guy. And the big thing, this is, before I go to break, because we're coming up against a break real quick here. Before I even go to break, how is it, Mr. Trump? How is it, Mr. Trump, that all the Democrats who hate you, every single one of them, are now supporting you, egging you on to attack Syria more? They egged you on beforehand, and you attacked. How is it? Are you a Democrat or are you a Republican? Are you against doing things inside Syria or are you not? All the people, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Feinsteins, all these people who are supposedly anti-war are egging on the president. Lindsey Graham, who hates the president, is now supporting the president in his actions to bomb Syria. John McCain's there. See what's going on, folks? We've got to take a quick break. More on the flip side of this. We're going to probably stay on this topic a majority of the hour. Second hour, we'll try to talk more of the 4th anniversary of the John Lebang Show. We'll try to keep it a little lighter in the second hour. Be right back. Stay tuned. Now, don't get your panties all worked up.
The John Lebang Show will be right back.
And you'll love it. CRRM, CarePoint Billing Services. Their billers and managers are all dedicated to working for you to increase your profits. For more information, call CRRM at 248-579-3805. CRRM, CarePoint Billing Services. Check out the new book from Derek Shelmerdine,
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
It tells the story of rock and roll from its roots right up until the mid-'70s punk.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Not just the music, but also the events that shaped the music.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
It includes the backgrounds to recording sessions, singles, album releases, births and deaths, epic concerts, and festivals.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Shelmerdine has made a painstaking effort to document pretty much every event that would prove significant in shaping popular music.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Purchase the book at www.rockandrollunraveled.com. Follow him at Twitter at R&R Unraveled, and look him up on Facebook at Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
By author Derek Shelmerdine.
Available now.
You're listening to the John Lebang Show.
Join the radio revolution right here.
It's better than some good tie stick, man. Yes, I would like some too.
That's why we've been in the Middle East for 15 years and we haven't won anything. We've spent $5 trillion in the Middle East because of thinking like that. We've spent and Lindsey Graham, who backs him, who had 0 on his polls.
So apparently when you're running for president, you can say whatever you want about the Syrian conflict, how bad the decisions were in getting involved in the Middle East, that the WMDs weren't in Iraq. Guess they're in Syria now. They weren't in Iraq. Now they're in Syria. I guess Saddam Hussein sent them over there. I don't know what happened.
Obviously, the war in Iraq was a big, fat mistake, all right? Now, you can take it any way you want.
Don't you love it that the news was in place and they could show you the pretty little streaks across the sky? They had the camera perfectly set. Oh, look at... We don't, this is an operation, We're not supposed to tell our enemies, Mr. President. You said Obama was stupid during his presidency for letting the enemy know what we were going to do. Yet, you all week, we're going to bomb them, we're going to do something, we're going to talk about it, The news media had their cameras right there. CBS had their camera, and you could see a little streak across the sky. It was made for TV. It's a slow night on Friday, ladies and gentlemen. It's a slow night on Friday, or at least when it comes to the media, people are out. They worked all week. They don't want to sit in front of TV. They've been sitting in front of TV all week. This is usually a good night to go out. Well, usually the ratings are down on Friday, so let's have something important happen Friday, after the regular news cycle, because just in case it doesn't work out so well, we have the whole weekend to let it kind of settle down before people get back into it all. I'm really flustered about this whole thing, ladies and gentlemen, because this is not what Donald Trump said he was going to do. He was going to keep us out of these kind of things. I guess that extra money they got for the military is being used right now. They say, oh, shoot, we've got money. Let's use it. Let's use it now. Let's not save those bombs, those extra bombs we're buying. Maybe these are old ordinances, so they can, let's just use them up so we can buy new stuff. It's getting old, whatever. They may not be as powerful as they used to be. Who knows, right? They're outdated. Obviously, they're outdated. Syria shot down a bunch of them. Whether it's 13, whether it's 70, we don't know. the United States is going to say one thing, the Russians in Syria are going to say another. You know, the propaganda has become is being executed in full force right now. Both sides are giving you their side of the story, and it's probably filled with lies on both sides. You can't trust any politician. You can't trust the Russians. You can't trust the Syrians. You can't trust the people running the United States government, the people in the intelligence agencies, the people in the military-industrial complex. We've had presidents warn us about people in the military-industrial complex who will want to start wars for, well, money purposes. They want to make money, you know, and we just signed a bunch of money over to the military, a lot of extra money, biggest whatever budget in whatever years. Those conscientious conservatives on the Republican side who hated deficits during the Obama administration are just fine with them when their guy's in office. I don't even know if he's their guy, but they're in charge right now, even though it looks like they're going to lose seats in the upcoming election, which is pretty normal in the ebb and flow of American politics. We just shift. We get tired of the Democrats, so we shift to the Republicans. Then we get tired of the Republicans, and then we shift to the Democrats. And all the while, the agenda continues. We have taken out practically every major power in the Middle East, minus Saudi Arabia, who, you know, I'm just saying, we still haven't dealt with the fact that most of the people in 9/11, those attackers, those people that stole the plane and flew them into buildings, most of those people were Saudis, and we haven't done anything to the Saudi government at all. We attacked Iraq, we attacked Afghanistan, we've taken out Libya, now we're taking out Syria, or we're trying to take out Syria. Russia sees all this, by the way. They're like, wait a minute, you guys are taking out countries that have nothing to do with that attack on 9/11. Again, most of the hijackers were Saudi. Why didn't we invade Saudi Arabia? Why didn't we take out that country? Why do we still, to this day, support that country and give them military weapons or sell them military weapons? You know, there's a lot of questions. Why is the agenda continuing when we had a president who said he would drain the swamp? Well, there's not much draining of the swamp. And all week, this has been a major news topic. And what did we get all week? We got Zucker screwball up there with his high chair in front of a committee. Oh, made for TV. Oh, Facebook. And then we got the Mueller thing, and then the Comey book. All irrelevant stuff. All stuff that doesn't matter. All the while we have a military conflict brewing. And if you think this was based on a chemical weapons attack, you might need to look into what's been going on in Syria. Yes, according to our own government, people inside our own government and the possible Secretary of State coming in, we took out Russian troops inside Syria. Can you tell me why we did that? Is there any explanation why we did that? And this schmeckle, here, I'll play it again.
This administration announced a nuclear posture review that has put Russia on notice that we're going to recapitalize our deterrent force in Syria. Now, a handful of weeks ago, the Russians met their match, and a couple hundred Russians were killed. The list of actions that this administration has taken, I'm happy to walk through each of them, but I don't want to take up much more time.
And I appreciate
the list
that.
is pretty long, man.
And I certainly agree with that, and I think those actions are important.
Listen how pompous this guy is, this Pompeo. Listen how arrogant he is. Oh, we wiped the floor with them. We taught him a lesson. That's what he's saying. Russia's nothing. We got this. We got this. They don't even care that we're drawing nearer and nearer to a war with Russia. If we're not already in World War III with these guys. Because this is not going to be the fight where it's going to be like taking out Libya. That was easy. That was you bombed. Eventually you were going to get Gaddafi, right? This isn't as easy as Iraq, and that wasn't entirely an easy thing. We're still having problems there. And one of our arch enemies has pretty much taken over the country, Iran. You're telling me that the agenda that was set forth way back in the first Bush administration, George H.W. Bush, that New World Order speech that he gave, and he went into Iraq way back then, and then all the governments that have been toppled since that initial action in the Middle East.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
And we continue to go about this, even though the president railed against this. We shouldn't be in the Middle East. Why are we there? I don't know. The president himself, while he was running for election, questioned the reason why we've been in the Middle East.
They lied.
Okay.
They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none.
Claimed many times he was right. We shouldn't have went to Iraq. We shouldn't have done this. We shouldn't have done that. Then why are we in Syria? What are we doing there, Mr. President? It was like a year ago that you said we were going to pull out the boots on the ground that we had in Syria. Obviously, we haven't done that, even though you said we did, or we were going to. Now, beyond the fact that we're attacking a sovereign country and we have troops inside a sovereign country trying to affect some kind of regime change there. Again, we have regime change. That's all our government has done over the past 20-some years. This country has regime change. The other country has regime change. We tried helping the Muslim Brotherhood have regime change inside Egypt, and the military didn't stand for it because the people we helped put in power were more brutal than the people that were there before. And it's pretty much the same way in Iraq. We go to Iraq, we topple Saddam Hussein, who had a pretty good control on the terrorist group. And he was the nice opposition to Iran. We didn't have to worry about spending money to deal with Iran on the level we do now. But now Saddam's gone. Terrorists invaded Iraq. Iran's now having political influence inside of Iraq. What side are we on? Do we even think of the long-term repercussions of our actions? Or is it because we're just tired of some guy because he didn't want to do something we wanted him to do? Or it was time for him to go because of whatever reason our politicians, our intelligent networks decided that this guy is no longer useful. This regime is no longer useful. So let's have regime change. Shoot, we take out Gaddafi and that guy gave us all his chemical weapons. He said, here, take it. We don't want you coming in here like you did Iraq. And what happened? We killed him anyways, didn't we? The guy surrenders his chemical weapons, and the United States and the West, the New World Order, said, that's not good enough. We don't want you, Gaddafi, so we're going to invoke some kind of regime change. We just happen to kill you, get rid of you. That's good. Goodbye. Regime change, although now Libya's worse off than it has ever been, just like Iraq. Worse off than it has ever been. We get our foot in Syria, and that country was worse off than it ever was. They finally start winning. They've got the rebels on the verge of defeat. And an apparent desperate move by the Assad regime. Because isn't that what a chemical weapon attack is? It's a desperate move. It's kind of a last resort. If you're winning, you don't use a chemical weapon. You just go in there and keep winning.
I believe there was a chemical attack, and we're looking for the actual evidence.
Do I have proof that he did or didn't do it? No, I don't have proof. The United States government doesn't exactly have proof. they themselves have said the inspectors haven't been able to get in there to check this.
We're trying to get those inspectors in if we get them in, if the regime will let them in. We will not know who did it. They can only say that they found evidence or did not.
The Russians are claiming it was a British false flag attack. We're supposedly the good guy. But how many countries do we have to take out the leaders of and devastate militarily before we become the bad guy? Putin's helping Syria because he's seen a series of events that are leading to one thing. And that's regime change in any country that doesn't get along with the West. Which means eventually there's going to be an attempt to have regime change in Russia. Because the Democrats in particular, we got some of the warmongers on the Republican side, because there's a lot of those over there too. But the Democrats for 2 years at least have been trying to pick a fight with Russia. The time President Trump has been in office, nothing or very little has gone the way he said it would in the campaign. Obamacare's still there, even though it was supposed to be repealed by now. The tax cuts were for corporations and barely anything for the individual. How's that paycheck looking? Now we have a escalation of war in Syria. And this time, we're killing Russians on the way to this escalation. Let me play you the clip as I go to break here, and we'll be back after this. Just to remind you.
This administration announced a nuclear posture review that has put Russia on notice that we're going to recapitalize our deterrent force in Syria. Now, a handful of weeks ago, the Russians met their match, and a couple hundred Russians were killed.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. Listening there. Don't go anywhere. The John Lebang Show is going to be right back. Just ask the hillbilly.
That's right. Right after this.
What about me? Maybe next time.
Powerful. Epic music by Toothbox Roll. Life-changing lyrics come in every style, empowering humanity to finally unlock the chains of bondage. Experience the edgy side of positive music and rock your world today. From Primal to Divine, available now at sassyalternativemusic.com.
Okay, fellas, let's play smart out here.
Yeah, we all know how to play hockey. I've never played before. Okay, well, most of us know how to play.
Welcome to Virtual Infinity.
So much for my fear of drowning. Now what do we do?
I say we really know best. What do I owe the pleasure of this quiz? We got a big problem here. Run, Leroy, run!
Don't let it grab you.
Holy faces! Oh!
Coming this spring, Virtual Infinity, a special presentation of the John Lebang Show.
Hey, man, it's at the bottom of the hour, man. Do you know where your kids are, man?
There have been a number of these attacks. In many cases, we don't have troops. We're not engaged on the ground there. So I cannot tell you that we had evidence, even though we certainly had a lot of media and social media indicators that either chlorine or sarin were used. I believe there was a chemical attack, and we're looking for the actual evidence. The OPCW, this is the Organization for the Chemical Weapons Convention. We're trying to get those inspectors in if we get them in, if the regime will let them in. We will not know who did it. They can only say that they found evidence or did not.
As you heard in the clip, General Mathis says they can't prove who would have launched the chemical attack. They don't have evidence that it was Assad. They're assuming, and even if there was a chemical attack and the inspectors found whatever nerve agent was released, they couldn't prove who sent it, who attacked who with that. So we have Assad who's winning a war, and the so-called rebels are in the last days of their existence in this war. It won't be long with Russian help to defeat the last of these rebels. Yet we're told that he uses chemical weapons, but he's winning the war. Chemical weapons on innocent. Now remember, this is one of the last strongholds of the enemy of Syria, the rebels. And you're telling me innocent women and children are being killed by Assad in these places when the enemy is there too. Now, we fired off a bunch of missiles. We just heard the report today. We didn't see Mathis at the report this morning either. And for those of you who are getting a later version of the John Lebang Show, you're getting the rebroadcast on a syndicated station. Today's Saturday, the 14th. So I'm speaking to you from the point of view of today, what I know of today. So Mathis says, and General Mathis is a war hero, and he says openly that they don't know who did this. They're assuming it's Assad. And even if they found out what kind of gas was actually used, because they're, again, guessing, most of their reports were taken from where? Social media and the mainstream media.
There have been a number of these attacks. In many cases, we don't have troops. We're not engaged on the ground there. So I cannot tell you that we had evidence, even though we certainly had a lot of media and social media indicators that either chlorine or sarin were used.
Those manufacturers of news, they can't prove that Syria was going to be the one who released that agent anyways. So there's no way to prove who would have done this if this heinous act actually happened. Because video can be made up, folks, and I'm not saying this event is some kind of made up situation, some hoax. But we're in the day and age where videos and pictures and everything can be manipulated so well to look as if it is real. Now, we're going to assume that there was a chemical attack there because that's what we're being told. But we're also being told that we don't exactly know who did it. We're assuming it was Assad and his group, although Assad's winning the war and wouldn't need to stoop to this level of warfare when you have the Russians and their army, whatever's left of it, pretty much finishing off these last remnants of the so-called resistance in Syria.
I think quite apart from all that, the debate that seems to be missing from this is, and this was actually mentioned by the ambassador, was what possible motive might have triggered Syria to launch a chemical attack at this time in this place. The Syrians are winning. Don't take my word for it. Take the American military's word for it. General Virgil, the head of CENTCOM, he said to Congress the other day, Assad has won this war, and we need to face that. So, and then you got last week the statement by Trump, or the tweet by Trump, that America had finished with ISIL and we were going to pull out soon, very soon.
But I've been covering Syria for years. Almost, as long as it's been going on. So when you're telling me that all of a sudden, a chemical attack happens in a country that is winning a war against the rebels, and it hits in a city that is dominated by bad guys, and it just happens to kill innocent women and children. They just happen to be in the way. No bad guys were hit. according to the mainstream media. So, Syria, who's winning a war with the aid of Russia, is so inept when they fire a chemical weapon, they totally miss the bad guys and they kill only the innocent women and children. Is that a possibility? Sure. We want to play devil's advocate here. Sure. Is Assad crazy enough to do these sort of things? Probably. But there's no reason to. He was winning. The winning side is so desperate that they're going to target chemical weapons at bad guys because this is being glossed over by the mainstream manufactured news, and that's what I'm going to talk about in the fourth segment, is how the mainstream manufactured news is covering this entire facade. But you tell me Syria is going to attack the last vestiges of the enemy, and they totally miss the bad guys, and they kill only the innocent women and children. That's what you're telling me. And that gives us a reason to strike. And let's not forget, folks, that this is beyond what's going on here. It wasn't but February, and we just played the audio. Here, I'll play it again, just so you remember.
This administration announced a nuclear posture review that has put Russia on notice that we're going to recapitalize our deterrent force in Syria. Now, a handful of weeks ago, the Russians met their match, and a couple hundred Russians were killed. The list of actions that this administration has taken, I'm happy to walk through each of them, but I don't want to take up much more time.
And I appreciate
the list
that.
is pretty long, man.
And I certainly agree with that, and I think those actions are important.
So in February, we had some sort of engagement with the Russians, and we wiped out their, a bunch of Russians. I don't know what it was, right? They're not telling us a whole lot of what it was. I don't think it was the Olympic team because, I don't know. Maybe it was the Olympic team. Maybe they decided since there wasn't really a Russian team for the Olympics that they'd send them to Syria for some reason. Maybe there was Syrian Olympics. I don't know. The forces that were destroyed, killed in Syria, the Russian forces, were definitely military forces. What else would be there? It's not going to be some Russian rock band. Remember, we had the Arab Spring, and this is kind of like, this was the last part of the Arab Spring. We're toppling governments all over the place. So the one country they wanted to topple and they couldn't topple was starting to win the war, because at least Trump, when he came in, started taking out ISIS, maybe just defunding them. But it looks like they took some hard military action against them. We'll give them credit for that.
Yes, we can.
But that allowed us to get deeper into Syria. And why are we in a sovereign country? How would we feel? This is just a great, I get these people that are, we should be there because of the innocent women and children. Do you want this? They try to make me out to be some non-caring human being here. Don't you care about those people? Don't you care about innocent women and children? I care about Americans first, right? I care about people from my neighborhood, because these are the people that I interact with. Do you think those people in Syria care about me? They don't even know who I am. I don't know who they are. We don't even know who did the bombing, who sent this chemical attack to who. We're guessing. And I'm supposed to believe all this. I'm supposed to believe, once again, WMDs, bad WMDs. Now they're being used. But these people online that just defend the position, I'm like, turn off CNN, turn off Fox News. You're done for. If you don't get away from those medias, you're lost. You're not going to get the whole story. Was it mainstream news that we killed a couple hundred Russians in the past few months? No, not mainstream news. They've glossed over that. Might have made it a little bit here, a little bit there, but glossed over. And that guy Pompeo, man, he's such an arrogant son of a gun, man. And he's going to be in charge. He's going to be Secretary of state. If they allow, it's just, what has happened to this country? It has changed so much, rapidly, digressing, degenerating, devolving into this abyss of madness where we think we have to get involved in every conflict. And I'm telling you, this is the military-industrial complex that's behind this. They have wanted war with Syria forever. Forever. We can go back into the John McCain archives and the Lindsey Graham archives, and even Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton and Barack Hussein Obama. Go back to George Bush. Syria was always on the hit list. They took out the little countries first, the easy ones. They screwed up in Iraq. They said, yeah, that was a little too big for us. And we can't even get that one right. Iraq is disintegrated into this Iranian stronghold now. We used to have a counter to Iran. It was called Saddam Hussein. Nobody liked him, so they wanted to get rid of him. Nobody liked Gaddafi, so they got rid of him. Nobody likes Assad, and they want to get rid of him. Yet, these are the guys that keep the countries in order. Maybe, just maybe, before I go to break here, maybe those areas need a little stronger hand, whether we like it or not. Maybe they need a little stronger hand to keep them from descending into chaos. And all we have done since Bill Clinton era, since George H.W. Bush, is destabilize the entire Middle East. And we have caused all the problems in that part of the world. We'll be right back.
Where do you think you're going?
The John Lebang Show will be right back.
So grab a beer and a smoke and sit your butt back down.
Stay right here. Pane in the Glass, commercial and residential window cleaning for a beautiful sparkling shine that's crystal clear. Call Pane in the Glass Window Cleaning. You can find them on Facebook at Pane in the Glass.
If you want to contact the John Lebang Show, feel free to send an email to jlebang@live.com. And if you're on Twitter, look him up at John Lebang. And don't forget to go to his Facebook page at The John Lebang Show. Banger.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
I'm just putting it all together for you, ladies and gentlemen, because there's a lot of people out there that are not seeing all the pieces of the puzzle. John Bolton has only been back for a few weeks, and all this is happening. John Bolton, the warmonger. See, America is supposed to be above all this other stuff, and that the rest of the countries play around, all this petty stuff that they do. America is supposed to be an exceptional country, and we're complaining about Syria having chemical weapons. We got mad because supposedly Iran had chemical weapons, yet they don't talk about that. We have our own chemical weapons. And if we were desperate enough, we would use them. Why would you have a chemical weapon in your stockpile if you didn't intend to use it for one reason or another? It's the same with nukes. There's reasons we have nukes. One day we might have to use one. Or at least that's what the powers that be think. Because we've caused the problem in the Middle East. We went there, we liked their oil, so we taught them how to use their oil. how to suck it out of the ground. We made money off it. They made money off of it. Unlike our country, which you may not like rich people, but they passed that down along the way. We made some money off that oil along the way. Your gas stations and any other thing that deals with oil that people make products with that they make money on. Out in the Middle East, they have a different mindset. And I know you can't talk about that. That's a taboo subject. People having different mindsets, that people are actually different because they come from different places. They may have a heart and a liver. Well, some of them might not have a heart. We don't know. So we go out there and we teach them how to suck up oil. Their rich guys get really rich. Screw the poor people totally. The heck with them. That's because they treat people differently out there. Women aren't treated the same. It's funny because the women out here are treated great comparatively, and we have more problems with with women being upset of how they're treated here than you hear about in those countries.
What difference at this point does it make?
It's just an upside down, backwards world. So we teach them how to drill oil. They make money. Then they start funding things because they didn't like us anyways. They hated us. But we taught them how to do things. They'll use us. But that doesn't mean they like you. And we've seen throughout history that even though people learn things from other people, they were deposed one way or the other. And that's what's happening. And now we're stuck in a situation that we created years ago. We should have just took the oil and said the heck with them. Let's not leave out that the military-industrial complex just got a raise from the United States government, and they are fully ready to go and spend that money. Notice how close these things. We needed money. We need to strengthen our military. Why do we need to strengthen it? They don't tell us exactly. We're weak. First chance we get, we go and launch a bunch of stuff. Not because we're weak, because we're the best. We're the best. It's like nobody puts these things together. John Bolton, we weren't going to mess with Syria. All of a sudden, John Bolton's there, a chemical attack happens, and we're ready to go again. Let's fight Syria. Let's bomb them. Who cares if we killed a couple hundred Russians earlier? And Russia's probably not too happy in secret. And there has probably been some repercussions. If we look through the news and we saw maybe an accidental helicopter crash or something like that, and it was very close to Russian territory, you can assume whatever you want there. But, Russian was KGB. And Russia doesn't like to be embarrassed and pushed around. It's a crazy world. It's a crazy world. And I'm so flustered at the moment because this is easy to predict. It's all on how Putin reacts now. And Putin, I don't think, is going to want to look weak. So we got to wait for Vladimir Putin's reaction because Syria doesn't really pose a threat to us. They can't attack us. They're busy with their own civil war. They have not declared war on us. They can't do... There was no action that Syria could do to the United States outside of some terrorist attack. And then how could we know where it came from at that point? We're lucky they didn't pull that one on us. We're lucky that they just pulled a chemical attack in Syria where nobody can prove anything. Nobody can prove anything. As you can tell, I don't prescribe to the mainstream media's perspective on this and the propaganda being bantied about by the administration and the intelligence agencies. And go figure, we're just going to touch on the United Kingdom for a moment. Theresa May out there, she, without any approval from Parliament because they were on some kind of vacation, she just goes ahead and authorizes this. Trump authorizes this without congressional approval. You see what's going on here? They were going to do this regardless. They don't care what the Parliament thought in the United Kingdom. They don't care what the Congress thinks here. We got Rand Paul. He's the only one with any sanity over this, or there are others, but he's like the main one. When it comes to war, Rand Paul is the most sane. He wants us not to get involved in foreign wars and only get involved if somebody attacks us. Here we go again. Last time we were physically attacked was a terrorist group, supposedly Al-Qaeda, I don't know, Taliban, Osama bin Laden. Apparently he wasn't at any of the events. And I'm not trying to say I like Putin or Assad or Osama. I hate these guys. They're just more scumbags. The world's filled with scumbags. But we have a bunch of Saudis who attacked the U.S. on 9/11. And instead of retaliating against Saudi Arabia, some kind of ally, that's what we're being told, we go attack Afghanistan and the Taliban because they're harboring Al-Qaeda or something like that. Then we go to Iraq because there's WMDs and terrorists there. Couldn't find many terrorists there, couldn't find WMDs there, at least not until Saddam was gone, and then terrorists started showing up. We leave, it gets worse. Then it moves up into Libya. Then it goes to Egypt. And then in Syria. You see what's happening? It's a big domino effect. A big, giant domino effect. And whether it was intentional or somebody in the very beginning, we'll go back to George H.W. Bush, the ex-CIA man. He was the Vladimir Putin of the U.S. because Putin, the leader of the country of Russia, is KGB. So you had KGB man running Russia now. Back then, we had CIA man running the United States government. Of course, some people think the CIA is because they're American is more credible, more reliable of a source because they're supposedly our guys than the KGB, because the KGB is our enemy, which KGB is the enemy of a lot of people. So is the CIA. Lots and lots and lots of enemies out there, folks, and nobody trying to be friends. It's a shame. We got to get on out of here for the first hour, 60 minutes down the drain. Thank you for joining me for this, little high blood pressured hour. I'll try to mellow it out a little bit, and we're going to try to have a little fun. If things develop, we may not be able to do that, but we're going to try to have a little fun in this week's second hour because we are on our 4th anniversary. I mean, this is steady now. 4 years have gone by that the John Lebang Show has been producing shows week in and week out. We've been doing the show for 6 years. But 4 years where it's been on the radio, and that's the starting point of where we are today, which is we're on nearly 40 stations. We're in 4 countries. We're played every single day of the week at almost every hour, depending on what station you're listening to. It's an amazing thing. We're going to talk about all that type of stuff, have a little fun, and hopefully no breaking news comes in to ruin all that in the second hour. So please stay tuned. Check your local listings for times and days. This is John Lebang. Don't forget to go to my website. That's www.jlebang.com. And until the vibrations of my vocal cords reach your ears again, and for some of you that's next hour, this is John Lebang signing off from the Banger Studios.
3, 2, 1. We have liftoff. Same time, same space, same station.